Howdy, folks. Happy Sunday. It's the end of another week, so providing a quick update, a little later than usual, but that happens. So, some of what happened last week, still some progress being made as far as it goes with the mental health negotiations with the state. I've mentioned before that, in a nutshell, the negotiations right now for mental health funding, the state wants counties to take over overflow from the state hospital, and they would also like to remove the wording from our contract that says subject to availability of funds, which, if you know the state's financial position right now, it's pretty clear why that's a concern and a problem. The counties, we received a memo this week explaining that, oh, how did they put it? More or less, they said that the change is necessary to ensure needs are met for particular populations, to which you have to assume if they're not committing to providing funding, then they're not actually taking that need very seriously. So I've been finding out through last week and this week. I had written an article. I put it out to a number of papers. I've posted it on this Facebook. But the article is run in the Oregonian. I'm told it ran in the Oregonian. I've seen it ran in the Register Guard and in the Lund Report, which is a new one to me, but they've been covering some mental health stuff, so I submitted it to them as well. And a number of other papers might have run it. I've received feedback from my colleagues that they're very happy with it. They were surprised I was able to get quite that much into such a small package to abbreviate what the problem is. And I've got one or two more articles drafted as this proceeds. The contract negotiation was extended 6 months, so it doesn't end until December, end of December. So we did that. I was on the radio on Cam's show. I'm forgetting what Cam's show is called, though. Yeah, but yeah, I was on the radio in our local area. Provided the number for the governor's office if you'd like to call her and kind of express your thoughts on it. The nutshell is to ask why the state feels it's appropriate to run a contract increasing the requirements on counties without ensuring the funding to do what's being asked. If you want to go farther down the rabbit hole, you can find a document called A Plan for Action from about 2004, 2005. And that's similar to when the state government did the same thing, but at a smaller level. And they never actually funded the community side, just like they're saying they'll do now. A lot of reading again this week. At some point, I've got to keep track of how many pages or how much time gets spent just reading reports and going through financial pages. I think that would surprise folks to know how much goes on just in terms of acquiring the knowledge to act on the things that come up is quite a bit of time. I was in Salem on Friday. I'm on the advisory board for Department of Health and Human Services, so at the local government capacity. Not much to report from that one. They didn't talk about the agreement at all, or really the condition of the state hospital. We covered some other ground, but it wasn't what I was hoping to see when I drove up there. I did get to talk to some of my colleagues about the issues, and we were all on the same page, which is good if nothing else, because some of the people from OHA were in the room to hear us talk about it. The director of Oregon Health Authority or the director of the mental health component weren't there, but still, it's important people in those positions hear from us. There's a lot of bits and pieces this week. So one of the things, I'm talking with our Office of Emergency Management for the county, watching what happened down in Texas and knowing what happened with our own floods in around March. I'm following up and checking back in on what kind of siren systems we have, what alert systems we have. We talked about some new technology or new software to reach out to community members when something's occurring. That's something Rod has point on. Um, but yeah, checking back in on that. I don't have any updates there yet, but just so people are aware, that is something that I think we're all paying attention to as well in light of recent events. Had a little more talk on hydrogen find its way to me. That was pretty cool. There's a company that's gone up and down the coast talking about just exploratory stuff. They're getting to know people. And I heard about the meeting separately from a commissioner out of Lincoln, and I think they met with John. So, yeah, it's just cool to see more industry coming by or more opportunities coming through. I've got a meeting with Bandon Dunes on Monday, so wherever we can get development is good. Any economic development is useful as long as it's, in balance. We don't want something crazy happening, but working on a thing while I was at the city of Coos Bay. We were able to save a lot of money from the city side, make better use of taxpayer dollars by upgrading the streetlight system to an LED system. The project costs some money, but the company that does it pays itself with your energy savings, and then once they're paid off, you just keep saving money compared to what you would have been paying. So I've reached out to talking with our staff when they have the time, because every department's short-staffed now. But to get an idea how many lights we have, I talked with the company. I know what number we need to get to, and we'll see what the county has, talk with some of the cities, and maybe everybody can come out a winner on this one. We'll just see what we get out of it. I've talked about a flyer going up to encourage folks to report power outages, not just full outages, but brownouts and flickers. Those flyers are up in a little bit in Coquille, the community boards in Myrtle Point, and I need to get some up in Coos Bay, and I'm going to be out in Powers this week with the South Coast Development Council talking about economic opportunities and what they're looking at. I met with Powers previously to talk about their plans, but SCDC brings a different knowledge set to the table when they have a meeting, so I'm going to join them for that when I can, because it overlaps slightly with the commissioner meeting this week, but should be able to make it. And then this week we're going to have, I talked about that one, and we're going to have the fair starting this week. So Tuesday, it's the 22nd through 26th. Yeah, the fair will be out there. Check out the announcements. Make sure you get out to it. And then the last bit on here. So this week had an interesting little spot that folks may have noticed. We had a bit of a concern that there were some large unfamiliar vehicles in the area, and folks thought that might be ICE. And there's concern out there, understandably. I mean, you see on the TV, it stood out to me. There was and I've had trouble. I like to find news on both sides of the fence. Doesn't matter if it's what I agree with or not. I like to know what's going through everyone's mind. And there's a video I've seen of what amounts to a line of infantry followed by a line of cavalry going through the middle of a park. That's pretty concerning, and I think everybody saw that, and then when they saw the trucks, folks got real nervous. So I went out to check on that, and what it turned out to be was National Guard presence. They were down here doing trainings with different groups. I know they worked with the hospital for a bit of time, and that unit was CBR, Chemical, Biological, Radiological. They work with weapons of mass destruction and things along those lines, but it has multiple applications. So in the context of the National Guard, you often see them doing relief work within the state as well. And there are components of infrastructure people aren't always aware of, and they can pose some pretty serious issues. So one of those not a problem anymore, but just as an example of something in our daily lives we're not necessarily aware of as a potential threat. The water treatment system for Coos Bay North Bend doesn't anymore. It uses a liquid version now, but it used to use, I want to say it was gasified ammonia in the purification process. And it was a substantial quantity in these tanks. And if those tanks had ever ruptured, there would have been health impacts for a 1 mile radius at least around that site. Again, probably third time I say it, that's not the case anymore. That was changed 1 or 2 years after I got on council, I think. So it would have been 2017-ish is my recollection. That was a while ago. But there are reasons these groups go out and conduct training with folks, because there's other stuff that can happen with stuff that you would normally expect to be benign. Reason I bring this up, the scare resulted in a lot of anxiety, and I've received some messages about the health implications thereafter from the stress induced. We've also had a bit of a thing where there's a vehicle in our area, I'm losing my voice for some reason, that belongs to Customs and Border Patrol. That vehicle is actually going to, it's maritime stuff. It's checking ships, making sure they've got what they're supposed to, they're following their process and procedure. It's not immigration, but it kind of looks like it because it says Customs and Border Patrol on the side. But in reality, it's a guy named Rob. Rob checks the ships. That's what he does. The reason I bring these two things up is they're spots where our anxieties got in the way of collecting what would be called actionable intel. We need to make sure when we're getting information that we have full information and that we are reasonably certain before we start really going out there with things. Because, well, like I'm getting the messages about, there are some negative implications to being wrong as well. Now, I understand people want to be cautious, but incomplete information can be dangerous, especially in the tense times right now. We're seeing around the nation people taking some pretty violent action about things. And it's bad enough when these situations are impacting people's mental health. They're getting physically ill, maybe from the stress, depending on their condition. It would still be worse if someone were to be wrong and someone took actions that resulted in injuries or fatalities. It's a scary time right now where there's a lot of things to be considered as we move forward. That video of the park down south keeps going in my head because I've seen some stuff about they did it because of crime, but ICE is immigration. It's not a police force. And I'd be pretty pissed off if somebody ran infantry and cavalry through one of our parks. So, but at the same time, we have to be cautious. Those two occasions, those are folks that are here to help us out, and we don't want to be wrong. I did get a response email. I didn't actually email the National Guard, but I got an email the following morning thanking us and other electeds for figuring out what was going on, talking with the public, trying to address the issue. And in the future, I got a bunch of points of contact, and they notified me if I ever have questions, I can reach out to any one of them. So I've now got 2 or 3 upper civilian leadership, a colonel, and 2 brigadier generals because of that whole thing. So it was taken very seriously by the National Guard as well, and they made a statement in their email to me that they have not received any requests from ICE to work together. and they are not working together. So they wanted to reassure everyone of that as well. And resulting from that, I do now have a regional contact for ICE because I feel the need to talk to them about the situation that's coming up. That's just part of how I work. I know sometimes I'm encouraged not to reach out to folks. Folks get concerned, it'll draw attention. I generally haven't had that problem in the past in situations, nothing similar to ICE, of course, but situations where the same idea was posed. So I am going to be talking with them and getting a better sense of why they're not following some basic things that were deemed constitutional by a federal court, and what their interaction is with just drug trafficking in Oregon, because that's the part I'm most worried about. And as an aside as well, I talked with Sheriff Gabe, and ICE hasn't reached out to Coos County for anything since 2014. So we are well and good off of their radar at the moment. But they also just got their budget tripled. So I think it's good to have contact ahead of interaction. Well, in-person interaction, I should say. Yep, I think that'll cover it. I seem to be losing my voice, so that's going to have to be it for now. We will see you all later. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your mental health. And yeah, that's it. We'll see you in the next one. If the slow connection button goes away so I can... Hey, there we